The 2024 season is underway, and at the end of this season, there is going to be 11 drivers that have not been re-signed to their contracts, and they will be looking for a seat in 2025. And today, I'm going to be ranking those 11 drivers to see who's the best and most likely to get a seat signed. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Car Rant. If you guys are new to the channel, we do builds, we do reviews, and we have candid conversations about cars. So if any of that interests you at all, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, share the video, do all that great stuff. And if you guys are into behind the scenes content, we now have Car Rant Extra, where we show you behind the scenes content. We show you bloopers, and we just show you the stupid stuff that goes on off camera. So if any of that interests you, go ahead and subscribe to the Car Rant Extra channel. Now, let's jump into it. Now, I did not realize that just over half of the grid doesn't have seats.
You don't have a job?
None of them have secured seats for the 2025 season, and that means that there's going to be a lot of moving around. I'm going to be ranking, well, who has the best chance at signing a seat? Who is the hottest prospect? Number 11, let's jump into it. I have Logan Sargent, good old land of the free and home of the brave. He's going to be probably moving back there at the end of the season because, well, frankly, he has not been doing well at all, finishing P20 in the championship. They said, you know what, we're going to give you an opportunity this year. Logan, we're giving you another chance. Yeah, he sucks. He's not good. I'm sorry, Chief. You're not getting a feel for the car. Are you bad as Nikita Mazepin? Maybe not, but you're really stinking close. If Williams' goal was to bring in a driver that was gonna crash the car into the wall, they did it. I would sign him again if that's what their intentions were. Yeah, Logan Sargent, unfortunately, you're probably not gonna get a seat next year. And number 10, I have Zhou Guanyu. If a young American driver that wasn't doing well isn't enough for you, let me bring you a young Chinese driver. Zhou Guanyu has done way better than Logan Sargent, but then again, it's also not hard to do way better than Logan Sargent. I think my grandma could probably drive a car better than Logan Sargent can.
He's out of line, but he's right.
But Zhou Guanyu has shown promise as a driver. However, he is what we would call a paid driver. More so, he is signed by the team to bring in the sponsorships. And with Audi coming in 2026, Audi by themselves can probably sponsor their F1 team alone. Now, obviously they won't, they'll have other sponsors and stuff like that. But the need for a driver to bring in sponsors like what Zhou Guanyu has done with the Chinese sponsors that he brings in, it's not going to be needed in 2026. And frankly, if you watched my last video, if Sauber decides to sign Carlos Sainz in 2025, they're going to need him. They're not going to need Zhou Guanyu anymore. I wouldn't get rid of Valtteri Bottas for Zhou Guanyu. Number 9, the Honey Badger, Daniel Ricciardo. I hate saying it, but Daniel Ricciardo is another one of those drivers that really doesn't have a chance to get a seat next year. And frankly, I should have honestly, now I think about it, probably should have switched Daniel and Zhou Guanyu, because Zhou Guanyu might get signed to another team simply because he brings in sponsorship money. Daniel Ricciardo is just a bad driver at this point now, and unfortunately I think his career has come to an end. Check out that video if you haven't already. I dive into Daniel Ricciardo's career ending in Formula 1. The fact of the matter is yes, Daniel does show promise, and he is driving better than Zhou Guanyu, but he still isn't driving to the level that he needs to be at to drive for a top tier team like Red Bull. And frankly, I don't think he's going to want to sign with another low tier team. He's going to want to sign with a high tier team, and if a team at the top doesn't want him, I think that he's just going to retire, or he's just going to live life as a free agent in Formula 1. Number 8, I have Kevin Magnussen. That's right, I have one of the 2 Haas drivers that are out of a contract this year. He lost to Nico Hülkenberg in 2023, and he's on pace to lose to his teammate Nico Hülkenberg again this year. That Haas seat, that might be a really good landing spot for Ollie Behrman, somewhere that isn't going to be too stressful because they're a back of the grid team trying to find their form. And frankly, I think that if they bring in Ollie Behrman, Kevin Magnussen is going to be the driver to go. I have Esteban Ocon at number 7. You might ask yourself, wait, didn't he score a podium in Monaco last year? He's a pretty decent driver. I actually like to say that Esteban Ocon is actually a pretty good racing driver. However, he's not as good as his teammate, and frankly, Pierre Gasly has shown a little bit more consistency than Esteban Ocon has, and that's what has allowed Pierre Gasly to beat Ocon before. And so, frankly, I think that Alpine is going to re-sign Ocon. I don't think that they're going to drop him. I think that he is going to be locked in for a seat at Alpine next year. I just hope the team doesn't exist next year and they get another driver in there, or another team in there, because Alpine really just isn't, they can't be a team anymore on this grid. They can't be taken seriously, I'm sorry. They would be stupid to drop him, in my opinion, because they need the experienced drivers driving that piece of trash that is the 2024 Alpine car, and probably the 2025 Alpine car. Number 6, Valtteri Bottas. That's right, I have the lead driver for the Sauber team this year. Before it became Sauber, he joined Alfa Romeo, and when he joined that team, he actually did pretty well. The car was, it was okay, but he was able to maximize the performance out of that car. And he was able to do that for actually, for the last couple of years that Alfa Romeo was a thing. I don't think the Sauber car sucks this year. I think the team sucks this year. I think that if you can't do a pit stop under 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds even, you really need to consider employing some other pit crew members. I also think that he is more locked in for a seat at Audi in 2026. Strictly because he is a driver that has a higher pedigree than a driver like Zhou Guanyu, someone who has had the experience, and he is truly achieved veteran status in Formula One, having won races and having a ton of podiums at Mercedes, and then going to Alfa Romeo, which is now Sauber, and considering he's doing pretty well with a pretty beat up team that doesn't know how to do a pit stop. And we're going to start out number 5 with Pierre Gasly. Now, Pierre Gasly, like Esteban Ocon, has had a win, except this win was at AlphaTauri when he was there. But the thing about Pierre Gasly that he has over Esteban Ocon is the fact that he has had experience in top tier cars. He's also driven really well in an AlphaTauri that should not built to be a championship contender. It's meant to mold Red Bull Academy drivers into the racing drivers that they become. That's why Pierre Gasly was able to leave AlphaTauri and join Alpine in the first place. I think Pierre Gasly is a little bit more of a consistent driver than Ocon, and really that's why I have him on this list. He's able to drive, he has shown that he's been able to drive top tier cars, and he's also been able to show that he can win in a car that's not supposed to be a top tier car. Number 4, Yuki Tsunoda. This guy is something special. He's a young driver on the grid. He has that fiery temper. He truly has that like short person energy. Like, you get him a little bit mad and he's gonna rip your face off. Like, that is Yuki Tsunoda. And he drives the car like he's going to rip your face off. I've never seen a driver drive a car as aggressively as he does, yet it looks so elegant and smooth as well. Yuki Tsunoda just knows how to drive a Formula One car, and he is a younger driver on the grid that, in my opinion, there are some teams that would be stupid not to sign him this year. That Haas seat could be a really good opportunity, actually, if they don't sign Behrman. That Red Bull seat might be a contender. And he might, he might put him on a trial basis like he did with Albon and Gasly, and he is maturing and he is developing that mentality that a race car driver should have. And so I think that when you get a fully mature Yuki Tsunoda in that car, someone with a little bit of a cooler head, he is going to be a force to be reckoned with. If the first two I mentioned in this top 5 were prime real estate, these guys are the mansions that are available to these Formula One teams. And I'm gonna start out number 3 with Nico Hülkenberg. That's right, the Hulk. He's had it rough over the past couple of seasons, not having a seat for a little bit, that kind of sucks. But when he signed with Haas in 2023, he immediately showed the consistency that he has. If they don't have him as lead driver already, he needs to be lead driver at this point, because Nico Hülkenberg has driven that Haas phenomenally this year. And frankly, I think that he needs to keep that seat in Haas. I think they need to extend his contract or re-sign him or do whatever. Or better yet, put him in a faster car. Put him in the Mercedes. Mercedes has an open seat next year. And if you're gonna prioritize George Russell, why not have somebody in that seat with him that can produce consistent points finishing runs in these races. Sergio Checo, whatever you want to call him, Sergio Perez is number 2. Sergio Perez is a veteran in the sport. He was racing with Racing Point, and he was even racing before then. He is the guy who was able to go toe-to-toe with Max Verstappen in some of these races. He won Saudi Arabia last year. He is on the older side, so I definitely see his time in the sport. I don't see him having a very long future in the sport. I definitely think that his time is going to come to an end. But I still think he has a couple more years left in him. And if he delivers in this Red Bull at the end of this year, and if he delivers the results that Red Bull wants from him, if he delivers the podiums and the points finish that they need out of him, they're probably going to keep him. A lot of people are thinking that he's going to lose that seat at the end of this year. But in my opinion, if he is producing the best numbers that he can, and Max is doing his thing, winning those races, why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, go ahead and keep Perez. And at number 1, if you didn't see my last video, well, it's time to bring in the smooth operator. Smooth operator. Carlos Sainz, I have at number 1 on this list. And why is that? Why do I have Carlos Sainz on this list at number 1? Well, let me put it to you this way. What is it that all the drivers in this list have that Carlos Sainz also has, but in one body? Some of these drivers have veteran status. Some of these drivers have been driving for years. Some of these drivers have had to move up in the ranks. Some of these drivers have even won races. Some of these drivers are extremely consistent. Well, let me give you a driver who is young enough to still have a really lengthy career in the sport, and someone who's old enough to, I would say, be considered a veteran in the sport. Let me also present to you somebody who has scored multiple podiums, someone who has won a couple of races. He's won 3 races already. And let me also give you the other guy that has beaten Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz Jr. Carlos Sainz, a smooth operator. He is a driver that is what I consider to be in his villain arc. And what do I mean by that? Well, he got dropped by Ferrari, and in my opinion, wrongfully so, which again, in my opinion, was a mistake. Go watch the other video. Carlos Sainz is truly the best piece of prime real estate that is on the F1 grid. How should I say, that isn't going to be on the F1 grid. And I'm not going to dive into the teams I think that could sign him. I've already mentioned before in my dedicated video to Carlos Sainz, I've already mentioned that Mercedes, Red Bull, and maybe even a move to Sauber would all be an opportunity. And that is also another reason why I have him so high up on this list, is mainly because some of these drivers that I've mentioned that don't have a seat might not have that seat because that team signs Carlos Sainz. For example, Zhou Guanyu, he will be the reason Sergio doesn't have a seat at Red Bull. He will be the reason that Zhou Guanyu doesn't have a seat at Sauber. That's why I have them below him. Not to mention, he's like 27, 28 years old. He still has a long career ahead of him, meaning whoever he signs with, they are going to want to keep him for the long run, and who knows, he is probably going to be the driver with the best chances of winning a world championship with whoever decides to sign him. Let me know what you guys think. Is Carlos Sainz the best driver that is out there out of the 11 free agents that I mentioned? Is there something that I got wrong? Is there something that you disagreed with? Let me know in the comments and we'll see if we can start a conversation. Now, remember, always be nice to each other, be kind to each other, always show each other love, always be positive. We're living in some pretty not positive times. We're living in some times of negativity. So let's always remember to look on the bright side of life, always be positive, be happy, and yeah, be blessed, have a blessed day. Have a blessed day.